Hi, welcome back. I'm Nick Hawtin. We're still at the Green Investment Summit here in Copenhagen, and we're getting ready for a discussion on hubs, because every industry, every university, it seems like every organization has a hub for something. They were called clusters a couple of weeks ago. Next month, they'll be called something else, but for right now, we're called hubs. There's a lot of different players in this field, and so I can't remember what the official title for this talk was. I'm afraid my piece of paper disappeared, but the thing we're going to talk about is how to be more efficient and how to stop stepping on each other's toes. Because, as an example of this, we've got, today we've got the Green Investment Summit here in Copenhagen. We had it yesterday. On Friday, there's another investment summit, and on Friday afternoon, Copenhagen FinTech Lab has a green investment event, all here in Copenhagen. And you think, how does this, it seems to happen all the time. Two of the biggest tech conferences in Copenhagen are both in the beginning of September. Anyway, we're going to talk about how to solve that. We're going to solve it all in the next 40 minutes here on stage. If you'll all just introduce yourselves one at a time, because then I don't have to remember exactly the organization you work for and your exact position. Sif, take it away.
All right. Thank you for having us.
Love it.
My name is Sif Neldebord. I work from the Danish ICT Industry Association. And actually, we are 104 years old, working within technology. We started out importing typing machines.
Okay, so like IBM started with salami
actually, there was
weights,
a problem back in 1917 that the Danish government, they didn't want to import the typing machines because they were too afraid that all the guys writing, they would make some noise and perhaps go to the streets, and because their jobs disappeared. So this is a very old problem, but it all went just fine. And we had the typing machine, we had the computer, we have the AI today, we have deep learning, we have robotics, we have chemistry as well. So we are there. So that's what we work with, and we help companies grow. And then we work with the municipalities and other state affairs to help Denmark be the best hub for IT.
Excellent. Then at the other end of the spectrum, we've got a little bit smaller.
Yeah, a little bit smaller, maybe. So my name is Oliver. I'm a partner at the 1508 Group. 1508 Group actually consists of 3 different companies. So first of all is 1508, which is a strategic design company. So we are 20 years old. I joined 5 years ago, so it has been running for the past 15 years before I joined, and following the path of kind of design. What you can say that we do at 1508 is we create brand experiences. So when mobile pay or when a new day needs a new identity, that is what we do. We do digital products. So when Novo Nordisk needs a new app for their new products, we create that app. When a Digital Hub Denmark needs a new website, that's one of the things that we do as well. Exactly. And also we are into what we call business design, looking for a new sustainable business model. So when IKEA are looking into going into circular economy, this is something that we help them with. So that's the kind of the strategic design company that we have. Also, we have kind of a technology leg that we call Strømlin. So with all the buzzwords within technology, so they do AI, machine learning, blockchain, and all those, right?
Excellent. So you have a coin.
Probably, yes. And then, for example, when Statens Museum for Kunst, they need to digitalize
the Danish National Art Museum.
Yes, exactly. So they have around 1% of everything that they have in their basement is shown at the museum. So they have like 300,000 pieces of art in the basement. So they wanted to show these pieces of art to the rest of the world. So we kind of digitalized the whole basement, and it's called smk.open. So that was a part that Strømlin did, for an example. And then 18 months ago, we created 1508 Ventures. So with all the surplus that we have from the other companies, we want to invest in good people with brilliant ideas.
Right. Now, there's a lot of people that want to do exactly that. Have you narrowed down what kind of ideas you invest in? Do you have a focus?
Yeah, so I think 1508 Ventures was actually created out of 3 good reasons. So one of them being that people that work in an agency, and a lot of young people, they all have ideas that they want to kind of live out. And if we want to kind of keep the talent that we have inside 1508, we should make a small hub inside the company where they can actually see if the idea that they have is something that could create value for people or actually become a business. So that was one of the reasons. The other one is that there's a big opportunity space out there in terms of good people with brilliant ideas. And we think that we actually have something to offer, being kind of an alternative to the VCs that are out there today. So kind of having a more operational look on giving funding to people. So when you join 1508 Ventures, you are immediately surrounded by people that has design skills, developers. We have an HR function, we have economy department. So all that is kind of set in place. So before I joined 1508, I was an entrepreneur myself, and that was one of the things that I really needed. So you're surrounded with this when you join 1508 Ventures. So we see ourselves more as founders than investors. And the last thing is, of course, that when we do the work that we do with corporates in the strategic design agency, we see a lot of needs out there that maybe could be something that we could duplicate and create a product out of and actually create a business out of this. So one thing that is a problem for one corporate is maybe a problem for another corporate, and let's create a business out of that. So
Cool.
That's the reason.
I think that was nice. It was concise, and there were lots of examples. Z.
Exactly.
Z.
I also actually think that history shows us that 1508 Ventures is a great idea, right? I mean, Trifork had Humio inside, starting it exactly the same way, talking specifically. And I think what you also bring to the table, which you actually forgot to mention, is customers from day one, which is pretty impressive, because you can test these new products on your already existing portfolio of customers. And I think that is definitely worth something, of being able to have customers and their feedback from the early days. Yeah, so I'm Zenia. I sit with investments at Digital Hub Denmark, and I think I am the toddler in this company, because we're only 2 years old, and you're 104 and 20.
Doesn't show.
Doesn't show. Me personally, I've been part of the Nordic and Danish startup scene for the past 15 years. But the organization, which I just joined this month, is relatively new. It's a marketing consortia, and the purpose is to promote all digital Danish startups internationally. We do a lot of things, but I think in this context, there's 2 things that's important. One, we support the talent agenda, attracting international talent. And once you've got the right people who can help you scale your company, then you're ready for international capital. And that is the other leg that we focus upon.
Excellent. All right. Now, we're all Danish organizations based in Denmark, based in the center of Copenhagen even. I think we can all get where we're going by bicycle. That 15 minutes away from here, just about, is Sweden. And in Sweden, they are forever making fun of us here in Denmark, because they say you guys are like, you're impossible to manage. You're like cats. You're always, there's 17 different initiatives. The Swedes are centralized, they're organized, they're disciplined, and the Danes were always doing 25 things at once. Like, for example, 3 separate initiatives for green investment in 1 week, in the same week. The Swedes would space that out over the year. All right. Now, there are pluses and minuses, but one of the things, let's maybe talk about the advantages of having so many competing opportunities, but also maybe the opportunities for collaboration and for how to achieve that collaboration. Anyone want to run with that one?
I can
Sif,
try.
go.
I can try. I promised the other guys a love metaphor. So here
love
goes.
story.
You can smile if it's good and just look down if it's bad.
That's very Scandinavian.
So you're a company, you're a startup, and you are looking for new friends. You're looking for a relationship, perhaps, but you don't really know what kind of relationship yet. It's a good thing to check out the market. It's a good thing to realize that some relationships will bring you wealth and glory. Some relationships will be very hard on you and will demand a lot of you. Somebody might just own you if you end up in a relationship with an abusive something. Let's not go down that road. So it's very important to keep that in mind when you're looking for collaborators. And I think what we are very good at in Denmark is to collaborate with lots of organizations at the same time. And that is something we see in our members, for one, that if you're an IT company, then you work within IT, but you also work within transport. You also work within agriculture, because that's your customers. And perhaps you, for instance, like 1508, you work with different kind of customers all the time. So how do you get the knowledge for every customer in a different situation? You do that if you're well connected with perhaps maybe some large organizations, and then you have to know the right people, and that's where you come in as well, because there are so many brilliant hubs that's specialized in something. And we see our job as the very old lady in the room, apparently, to know how things work, and to know the regulation, and to know how to help companies. And sometimes what you need to know is to send the company to somebody brilliant in that specific field. And that's difficult knowledge. That's kind of like going to a party, telling your friend, so I'm looking for a girlfriend, boyfriend, who's single? Or can you invite somebody I would like? I don't see a lot of people looking down to the floor, so I guess it's okay.
All right, well, so if we run with
let's
this
not wear it
metaphor,
out.
I mean, it's love. Who doesn't want to listen to a love story?
Love is many things. All right, well, listen, if we run with this, and as somebody who's sort of recently become single within the last couple of years, yeah, all right, so I'm with you. There's various apps out there. There's lots of different, and there's no one single. I think, whether let's say the Swedes or whether other people would say want to look for one solution. Why can't I find the perfect girl? Well, do you want the philosophical answer, or do you want, or should I just, or just you're looking for a couple of introductions? If we break down the problem into, so for example, something like Tinder is very good for discovery. People on Tinder are usually single. There are a couple of basic assumptions you can make. They are usually looking for a significant other, or at least, a good time, or at least, depending on what they say, friends. And whether you need to, and if you're not looking for somebody that likes motorcycles, you can keep scooting. So let's say perhaps maybe if we think about our hubs and we get past the fact that there are many different hubs and start thinking of what is the purpose of them? What are the because there's Dansk Industri, there's Dansk Erhverv, there's lots of different organizations in our field trying to do what you guys. There's you, right? It-branchen, and so it's It-branchen. So how do you differ from Dansk Industri and DE? Do you do completely different things? There's more than one gas station. There is more than one chain that sells hamburgers. There is more than one place to go out in Copenhagen and buy a beer. Maybe we should embrace that and say that's a good thing. And so if we look at these groups, we say, well, all right, discovery is a function. If we're looking with the dating thing, if we're looking with the who can help me, well, there are these 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 organizations that can help you, depending on what your problem is. You follow? Are you with me? You feel me?
It's kind of funny because normally I'm the old grumpy lady in the panel. And I think it's because I've been part of the community and I've seen a lot of initiatives and events over the past 15 years. And then someone new comes on and they're like, oh, we should totally try to do this matchmaking. It should be online. It's going to be great. I'm like, yeah, sure. But have you spoken to Tech Barbecue, who's already doing it 3 times a year? Have you looked into what are the existing investor conferences? Why don't you do your matchmaking in synergy in the same week or as a warm-up to that event which already exists, right?
Should we perhaps accept that maybe this just isn't in the nature of the Danish people? Maybe we should, I was thinking, because I've definitely thought this same thought, and I've got a couple more wrinkles. The right side of 50, as I like to say. And that, maybe we should just embrace and then learn how to deal with this, the never-ending series of initiatives.
I'll try to stay in the dating love story analogy.
Metaphor,
It seemed to be humorous to people. So I guess, yes, you could go on Tinder or yet another concentrated location where you would find someone. So for once, because I'm really tired of this, and I've been so for 15 years now, so on Digital Hub Denmark, we've made an investor event calendar. So it's actually focused upon international investors. So when they are in the country and they have a board meeting or they're setting up with someone else, then they can go and check and see, oh, what kind of investor events where I can meet promising Danish startups are actually going on. And I think right now we have approximately 40. and that's just still counting, right? Because new events keep popping up. I refresh it every other month. And then, of course, we have the Startup Digest, which Mr. Hawtin is the editor of, sending out every week. What are the events going on in Greater Copenhagen only? Southern Sweden, and then, I don't know, Zealand maybe. It's part of
As
that.
far as you can get on a bike or with a bus ticket.
Yes. Then I think it's also a matter of actually being, now I'm back to the old grumpy lady position. I think we are too democratic, and I actually think we're a little bit too open and too collaborative. I think we should, cut half of the events and then make them much smaller. Who cares if there's 100 people in a room? If you can make a difference to 3 startups and make highly qualified matchmaking for those 3, and then spend the entire budget of researching who is that right investor. We had Ken from Lunar Bank. He's in the midst of raising his Series D, so he's been on the venture fundraising journey for sure. And he was so kind to share with us that since 2017, where he started, he's been in contact with 400 investors. So, and he's doing really well, right? He's very successful in fundraising, and he has been in contact with 400 investors. Also, just to prepare you guys on the startup side, who is in the midst of fundraising, you will have to meet a lot of investors, and majority of them will say, no, thank you.
And I've swiped past an awful lot of profiles, and I've been on an awful lot of dates where you walk in, you're like, cool, I can tell, you can both tell right away, let's just enjoy this beer, we'll have a nice, and then,
But patience, and I guess in your case,
Yeah.
because I happen to know Nick personally, it actually works really well, because Nick also has a love story where he was very patient.
That's true, yes, exactly. The mother of my kids, yes.
Nick meets the love of his life at a wedding. Unfortunately, she's occupied, right? She has another partner. So what to do? It's a little bit the same with the investor, right? So not that interested at the moment, but I have this amazing idea. I'm this amazing person. Okay, no match now. Let's keep in contact.
Give it 6 months.
And then, you evolve, probably on both sides of the table, right? And suddenly you're no longer occupied. You have exited that competing startup of yours, which means they now can reinvest in someone, and there's no longer an internal interest conflict.
And 2 lovely children resulted.
There you go.
And a very amicable divorce. So, it can also go well that way, too. You're quite right. Very good point. So it's like it's a long term, so keeping other people in mind. You mentioned calendars. You've got your investor event calendar. I've got the Startup Digest, which is worldwide network. Good God, yeah.
And Hey Funding?
What's that?
Hey Funding?
Hey Funding. You're right. So there are a
know
couple of
Hey
different
Funding?
places to get
Nope.
Hey Funding. I was going to say, what? All right,
But
this is a new one.
I think it's important to ask the question, like, what's the problem really? So what is the problem really with this?
With discovery, I think is this big one, right? Is I'll say like between being single back in 2001 and being single in 2019, I was like, damn, now I know where all the ladies are, right? And also that instead of walking up, in a haze once you've gotten enough drinks to get your courage, and going, hi, and then somebody going, I'm married, so sorry. And moving off to the next one, I can see that the people on Tinder are actually single. This is a massive plus for everybody. Also for the people on Tinder, they're like, why are you talking to her? I'm single, she's married.
But it's a very
But
important
maybe
point
Oliver has
about the
a point
need.
about this.
Yeah, because he's actually the designer who's trained to find the right need and to answer the right need.
Yeah, so I think actually the people that I work with, I'm actually educated at CBS in law, so I'm not a designer by heart at all.
Really?
But I work with designers every day. And
So a recovering lawyer.
yeah.
Respect.
What I've seen in designers is that the most important value proposition to the world is their ability to navigate uncertainty. So navigating uncertainty, because we live in, I think everyone has heard this for the past 5 years, VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And designers actually has the ability to navigate this. So I think startup people that actually go out and really want to fund something, they're able to navigate this as well. So I think as many possibilities that are out there, let them just come. I think that the biggest issue right here is actually the ones that can make the biggest difference is the corporates right now in this space. So a tendency that we have seen for the past 4 or 5 years is that all corporates out there has been creating those innovation labs. So they all have like a speedboat on the side, and then they want to looking for the next value driver themselves. And
They got a couple of hanging glow plug, right? The light bulbs with the coils and some plywood furniture. Yeah,
yeah,
cool.
exactly.
Yeah, and I've got a kind of jaundiced view of them, having worked with them. You have give us the positive side, because I can talk for hours.
I'm
about
not
how
sure
it's a
that I
waste of
can,
time.
but you know, attracting talent to those innovation labs, they all had this sense, and so we're looking for people with entrepreneurial mindset. They were battling for the ones that actually wanted to create something themselves, and they went to this corporate, and then they just got smashed down of all the corporate politics.
Yeah.
So these innovation labs has been closing down.
Exactly.
There's a budget for those innovation labs that are not being used in the corporates right now. So I think that you should actually take those budgets, split them into two. Do 50% of the budget should be looking at how is our core business model, can we make this more sustainable? How can we redesign our core business model? And the other part should actually go into hubs like Digital Hub Denmark or other hubs where they can actually invest in hubs that can go and find the talent that can actually work on the problems that are inside the corporate, maybe in the same industry. So for example, we work a lot in pharma, in financial tech, and in membership organizations. What if all the 5 big pharma companies in Denmark that all have R&D, they just put their innovation lab money into one hub, and then they could attract talent to this hub. You could actually hire talent from outside the world, and then you can go and invest sweat in solving the problems that are in the companies. So I think more hubs are needed, more funds are needed, and I think it should be funded by the corporates, seeing themselves as LPs in a
Go.
Yeah, and I think an important point is that what you talk about is specialized talent. And that leads on to this problem we have in Denmark, at least, and in this region, that we lack talent. And we lack, I wouldn't say entrepreneurial talent is not there. There's lots of it, but we need more. Because we have brilliant companies, we have a good economy, we have investors, and we have brilliant hubs. So now we just need more talent. And how can we bring people to go to Copenhagen and set up their startup? How can we bring investors to invest in Copenhagen or Greater Copenhagen based startups? That's an important question. And I think one of the solutions is within what 1508 is doing with the venture company, because what do talent need? They need these safe environment where you have the human resource department, where you have other talent that you can just go knock on the office door, and you can use them, you can work with them, and you need the life work balance as well. And I know that we can discuss that for a long time. Do we have that in reality? Yeah. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But I think it's important to see how can we attract this talent that is needed. Because nobody wants to go set up a startup, a place where there's nobody to talk to about what you really dream about doing.
Cool.
So I think it's 5 minutes ago I said, we're way too collaborative, we're way too open, we're way too democratic. But I actually think on one agenda, it does make sense, because together we are greater, to put it in a short and semi-tacky sentence. And that comes to talent, right? We need some overall marketing efforts internationally, where everyone needs to show how many job opportunities are there, what are the kind of exciting technologies and companies that we have in our small but lovely country. So definitely. I think another point is also, and maybe a little bit in extension of what you're saying, because once we encourage young people, young talented people, to do their own startup or to come and work in a startup, then naturally you're kind of being positioned in an environment where I want to stay. But like any kind of ambitious young person, you are also on your career to something greater. and then you're being inspired. Obviously, I have to make my own company. Oh, I've already learned some of the roads along the way by working in a startup or by being offered an opportunity of building my own startup, but in a little bit more protected environment and hub. So definitely on the talent side. I think what is the problem today, though, is that there has for many years been really large-scale budgets from the public side to promote us internationally. But I think we've not been good enough at taking those large-scale budgets and then turning them into some more simple and truly valuable products for the actual companies who were supposed to use them. So I think we need to kind of work on two levels, right? The very large one, we're country, come and work, not in fairy tale land, but we need a different storytelling. Yeah. But then also we need to make it tangible and saying, okay, but we have 20 companies, and I know for a fact because I have a list of them, who's currently fundraising for a Series A. And as soon as they close that round, they will need to hire each between 20 and 70 new people, each one of them. Those are the companies that we need to make a product for, combining it with the large scale. And any other ideas for talent, because it is very much needed. Maybe something also about category. How do we define talent? What is talent? Can talent be more than a PhD?
Also maybe some really straight up simple solutions for things like helping foreign talent get a bank account when they move here. Oh, my goodness. Because yeah, we live in a, let's see, the Nordics, you said, your reaction to the love metaphor was smile or look down at the ground. And I just talked to way too many people from non-EU countries who tell the story of when they're filling out the form on the bank website, they check the box that says non-EU resident, and then they never hear back. And the bank doesn't say no, the bank just never ever calls them or sends an email, or they just never ever hear back.
Well, that's why we have strong policy on internationalization in the industry association, together with a lot of other industry association, and I know that you work on it as well, because we need to have more than a fast-track model that only large companies like Danske Bank can use to onboard new employees. And that is something that we've been working on for years now, right? And we have a serious problem in Denmark compared to other countries. And I'm not going to talk about sad policies about foreigners coming to Denmark, because that's a very large problem that we can't solve here. But it's definitely something that at least governmental bodies should be aware of, because it's actually killing talent and it's killing revenue, and it's asking large companies that need to hire 70 new employees to go to Silicon Valley or somewhere else, because there's money and there's probably a lot more people to hire with no complications in that way.
The hub of hubs idea, that one's been kicked around a bunch of different times. Thinking maybe Digital Hub Denmark, you've got a lovely space, little advertising for you. You've got a great space down on the harbor, up under the freshly designed by a very clever architect with great taste, nice bold colors, lots of flexible space to fit in a meeting for a hub of hubs.
I mean, I love the idea, right? But I think every single initiative, mainly grassroots, so far has unfortunately failed. And I think it's a really tricky balance or line to walk, in particular as a private-public organization, which means we are mainly public, but we're actually also private, which is a bit funny. Because you need the integrity from the community to support and saying, yes, we do want the ecosphere, that hub of hubs. And if the community doesn't want it, and if the players doesn't see you as the hub of the hub, then you can't play that role, and then there's really no point in trying. We're testing the waters to see if the community actually wants it or not.
I love to see you guys, you're hipsters, you're in a backyard of at a super cool address in perhaps the coolest neighborhood in all of Copenhagen that has forever been cool. You've got the right shoes, the right beard, the right hair. You look at all of this. You look at you're very welcome. You're very good. It's a design bureau, for heaven's sake. Listen, but I mean, if you showed up looking sort of undesigned, he would have had to send you back home to dress right for the occasion.
Where do you live, Nick?
You say, well, I live near Kristen. I live next to... Anyway, same neighborhood, ride by your office all the time on my bike. But where I'm going with this is, you see it from an operational side. We've got organizations, we've got 3 ecosystems, people on stage. We've got you out there actually investing money and, for example, working with the corporates. I stayed out of your corporate comment because I am a little jaundiced. I tried to stay out of it. But when you look at this and you think, is there any point in trying to organize this, or should we just run with what we got?
First of all, I don't even buy my own clothes, so I'm really, really happy for that comment.
You've outsourced it well.
I'm 35 and my mom still does, but no. Thank you.
Your mom's good at it.
But I actually think that we should just, the more hubs, the better. I think that the people that actually want to come, they can navigate where there's a possibility here, and then it's shopping around. It's okay. I don't. We had this thing at 1508. We are 50 people. For 2 years, we didn't have anyone quitting. That was like, so is this good or is this actually bad?
Right.
I think that was actually bad because you need kind of a refreshment sometimes, right?
Sure. New blood.
Yeah, new blood. And I think it's okay just to shop around, because shopping around means that you get the best of people that experience something at one place, and then they bring it to the other place, and then just on to the next one. Of course, still like a consecutive thing is sometimes good, but I think it's a good thing shopping around. So
cool.
The more hubs, the better. And then I think the corporates should look at how they can kind of be more involved in this.
Yeah. Well, they've been through a cycle where everybody had a lab, and then it seems like all the labs, like you said, are closing down. Have they stepped, what's your experience? Have they stepped away from their engagement? Are any of them, have they figured out what they want to do next? I see interesting stuff happening, for example, at Maersk, where Maersk opened up a venture arm a couple of years ago that's headquartered somewhere at the very, very top with the board. But then I also see they've cut loose, and so I see Maersk tankers doing some Maersk drilling, and they're separate. And then they've also got a couple of Zero North. They've got some spin-offs going on. So they've decided, instead of trying to, or at least Maersk has decided, instead of trying to control innovation centrally, well, let's see what happens out round and about. What's your?
Well, I think that the new garage, if we should put it in their old terms, it's giving the power back to the employee, just as 1508 is doing it. They try to see, okay, so I want to keep you because everybody has a lack of talent. Well, not the person, but as a company. So how can I make that work? How can I, instead of sitting you outside the tent in rain on a very cold Danish summer day, just like today, for instance, how can we not do that? And how can we keep you inside when there's warm, there's running toilets, and just like here, and how can we do that instead? So we've seen all the large techs, all the GAFAs like Google or Facebook doing a thing where you can spend some of your time working on your own projects, and they do it in different models. And I think that's something we should definitely look for. And I think it's something that the employees will look for, because I know that you have success with it, and a lot of our member companies have success in this. Instead of putting them out in the rain or in some fancy tent that does not work in the end, then keep them inside and have them use all the facilities.
I think there is maybe, and we're coming close to the end, there may be an analogy here. If you look at how exchanges and marketplaces have grown up other places, Lloyd's of London grew out of, wasn't started by the Lloyd's brothers or the Lloyd's family. It happened at Lloyd's Coffee House. So people that did insurance for the shipping industry met at Lloyd's Coffee House because a lot of ships' captains came in there when they landed with their ships. So that was the best place to get information about the coffee industry. There's also the cottonwood tree. I mean, there's different exchanges. I think there's Wall Street, started with the New York Stock Exchange, started under a tree. There is, the people where people gather, and it happens organically. So I think that maybe what we're witnessing in our frustration with having been, the grumpy old folks is, we're grumpy old folks and we've been around forever, and people have noticed forever because we've been here for 12, 15 years, which is nothing in the length of an industry. And maybe our frustration is just that it hasn't coalesced yet, but that we are gathering around it. Maybe the key thing is information. Maybe it's where do I go to find all the hubs?
But I think there are some principles, right, that makes a hub successful.
True.
And there is something beautiful in close physical proximity. So if you put ambitious people into the same room, into the same house, into the same office, more or less they will figure it out themselves and make something greater.
Our offices are all within a 5-minute bicycle ride of each other.
Yes.
Right.
But the thing is, that's just not enough, right? I mean, how to take that and then turn it into something online and something greater. And
You need
I
the
mean, we
design
also
process.
have Jotlin and we have the Nordics. And I used to work, for example, for the US Embassy, helping American companies entering the Nordic and eventually the European market. And we would never talk about Denmark alone. We would always present the Nordic market, the 8th greatest market in the world, 25 million people. And it's super tricky, right? Yesterday there was another panel with several impact investors. And they all said, we don't look at Denmark alone, obviously, because then otherwise pipeline would be too small. We look globally for the next green tech impact startup. And they challenge the fact that we as an official Denmark need to change. And I don't think it's going to take more than, it's going to take a while.
25, 50 years.
But the KPIs that is set up for official Denmark is how do we create wealth and growth in Denmark? How do we create jobs in Denmark? And those KPIs are old school. I mean, I get it, right? We're all paying our taxes. They are here to administer those money. It's a massive responsibility, but it's just not working.
Yeah.
Is that changing? Is that coming more like a global focus?
I mean,
Go. Yeah, it's a good
there's
question.
definitely discussions about how can we make it easier to do landing pads for international companies and startups. But the bureaucracy is...
Cool. Listen, we got last comments. Have you got something good to come with? Cook it down. But Sif, you got your...
I can just answer the question and say that us doing nothing up here on stage, it will be solved because the European Union is actually right now doing a lot of policy on sustainability, and it will affect all of Europe, all companies in the end. So I think that this problem would somehow solve itself in time, but of course not the investing part. There's big money now in Europe, but not as many as in the US, for instance.
I think a great solution for that is the next thing will be corporate venture studios. So it should be venture studios that are not in the corporates, but they are funded by the corporates, so in the same industry. So you would have a pharma venture studio, you would have a legal tech venture studio, and then you will have a fund, and then they will be really operational. So you would have designers, developers, HR functions, all those things within the studios. So we have seen all those office spaces for startups, but they always just had a lawyer and revisor,
An accountant.
An accountant attached to it, but never something that are more operational than that.
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned the corporates. If we're talking international, we want to go bigger than the region. Sweden is just across the water, and they got a lot of really interesting things they're doing over there with some really big companies. You mentioned IKEA. I work with Sony over there. The Swedes do things different. They do things at scale, and their corporates are onto some interesting stuff. Cool. That's all we've got for right now. We're going to continue arguing about this over lunch. You're welcome to do the same. Thank you very much.